Many fear the unknown, the mystery, the uncertainty. It's intriguing. In the digital age, there are many corners of the internet left unexplainable, with Roblox being no different. Due to the billions of users constantly creating and adding more to the platform, Roblox has its fair share of mysterious occurrences, with strange accounts, cryptic games, unsettling events. Once upon a time, tales of unnatural beings took over the Roblox space. But what urban legends kept players up at night? And how did these accounts lead to a world of myths? Let me tell you a story.
Run!
Good afternoon, everybody!
We were just in genuine fear.
Hello, I'm the File Manager, a digital being that lives inside this very computer, managing all your files for your utmost convenience. How can I help you today? What are Roblox myths? Well, fascinating subject, and a familiar one too. And what makes them great? Well, great question. And what went wrong? Oh. Well, you came to the right place, because for some strange reason, this computer has a ton of files of information on the matter. Well, it appears that this computer belongs to someone named Adam? Are you at... No, you're not Adam? Okay, well, sorry. Regardless of if you own this computer or not, I'm here to help you. So, let's begin. Roblox is a platform that allows for many forms of creativity to shine. A key component of it being an entire world for people to interact within, almost entirely created by the users themselves. Via digital avatars, they can build, share, and connect, which overall creates a great environment for immersive stories to take place. Now, online, a myth is something that we are all familiar with. They may go by many names, but whether you know them as scary stories, urban legends, or creepypastas, in the end, they all refer to the world of the strange and unusual that one may encounter on the internet. Over the almost 2 decades of the platform's existence, there has been no shortage of harrowing fictional tales carefully crafted and told through Roblox characters and games. Accounts with intriguing backstories and playable experiences telling a wider story. Roblox myths are some of the most compelling and intriguing pieces of creative media to ever come out of the platform. The term Roblox Myths is an umbrella term that covers multiple subcategories of a mysterious tale. For instance, during the early days of the platform, the subject of these myths were usually not intended to be one to begin with. These myths that went around were more closely akin to that of folklore. People at the time usually created and/or passed on tales that explain the unexplainable, the subject of these normally being bugs, official accounts, or even things that just didn't exist. All in all, things that everyday players weren't behind, or had access to, which sparked a lot of people's imaginations. One of the earliest known examples is a myth known as the Weird Thing. It was December 7th, 2008, just an ordinary Sunday. That was until a YouTuber by the name of Aquajet316 would post a video titled Roblox Myth Investigators, Case Number 1. The Weird Thing. Aquajet would come across a strange occurrence in a place they were making. In-game, they pointed out a phenomenon in the distance. A little white figure, that stood out amongst everything else. Aquajet was a bit shaken by this, wondering if it was some kind of ghost. They then added further context by stating, "The second time I recorded the place, the ghost was gone." This was a strange occurrence, and this discovery prompted Aquajet into creating an entire series dedicated to investigating more into something they would refer to as Roblox Myths. This may or may not have been the first, but it definitely was one of the earliest surviving recorded instances of a Roblox myth. This and the following episodes Aquajet would go on to release until the abrupt end of the series in 2009, sad disappearance in 2011, and then unexpected and questionable return in 2022 would all contribute to the rise of an entire community on the platform. Of course, though, the question still remains, what is the weird thing? Well, in a follow-up video, Aquajet revealed the strange occurrence to most likely be an NPC that was unintentionally spawned in by a script that was a part of the game they were making. The NPC noticeably had multiple shadows due to Roblox's old lighting system, so this is most likely what we were seeing in the low-quality video. But regardless, Aquajet didn't walk up to the figure in the initial video, and stirred up debate on what this strange encounter could have possibly been. To this day, there is no exact proof of what the weird thing actually was, as Aquajet never showed it again in that specific area. But, of course, the sequel pretty much cleared up all the confusion by giving a pretty solid explanation. But still, that small sense of not knowing with 100% certainty is what makes myths so enticing to begin with, and would be the small flame of creativity that would spark a wildfire of elaborate stories. Now, in another case of something being created out of nothing, there are two names that need no introduction. John and Jane Doe. For the longest time, these two Roblox accounts sat dormant and offline for 11 years. The two were among some of the earliest accounts made on the platform, but during the time of the unknown, mystery and uncertainty followed them wherever they were mentioned. The two looked exactly the same, and even had matching names, joining each other right after one another. And strangest of all, on March 6, 2006, at 4:59 p.m., at the exact same time, both accounts went offline for years. The unexplainable traits of these accounts, and no one ever claiming to be the ones behind them, all led to the rise of countless stories, rumors, theories, and, of course, myths. Even our old friend Aquajet got in on it, all the way back in 2009. As a part of their Roblox Myth Investigator series, they covered Jane Doe the Anonymous, then followed by Jane Doe. Aquajet is once again frightened, and, well, once again questions if they are ghosts, pointing out the strange qualities of the figures as well as their strange disappearance. Yeah, that's pretty freaky. Over time, these accounts sat unbothered, but the rumors only grew. Some speculated there may be something more sinister going on here. A story began to float around, insisting that if one were to dig deeper into their disappearance, they would find something they weren't supposed to. The player would reportedly get a message from the accounts urging them to stop, then followed by their immediate termination. And then, another rumor arose in 2017, as John and Jane Doe were speculated to hack Roblox on March 18th. But, as I'm sure you know, the day came and went, with Roblox remaining intact. Moderators even put out a blog post later on explaining that the rumors were a hoax, and that John and Jane Doe were just test accounts created during the early days of Roblox by David Baszucki and Eric Castle themselves. The mass media outroar for this pair was like no other for Roblox at the time. But once again, this myth proved to be effective as it instilled so much fear into people that many players didn't play Roblox at all during that fateful day. But this next example shows a myth being taken to a whole new level, with an entire character being created by the community based solely around a Roblox feature. From 2008 to 2017, two kinds of people roamed games on the platform: players and guests. When navigating Roblox, players had the option to do so anonymously. When trying to join a game, if not already signed up with an account, players would have to choose between a male or female avatar. Once chosen, they would be put into the game as a guest, followed by a randomly generated number. When playing as a guest, players had very limited options and no progress was saved. When a guest left the game and rejoined, they would be assigned another random number. But ever since the inception of the guest feature, a popular idea was prevalent. Since guests were assigned a random number in-game, there were many tales of guests with strange number combinations that were rare and out of the ordinary, such as 1, 1337, 0, 111, etc., etc. But out of all the numbers a guest could be assigned, one rose above them all. A number associated with evil, instantly sparking countless rumors, stories, and adaptations. A number that brought rise to an infamous Roblox legend: Guest 666. Whether it be a hacker, demon, or supernatural being, the identity and story of Guest 666 is interchangeable and inconsistent. The only solid idea behind this myth is that of this guest having abnormal powers. But this myth was different from any other Roblox legend, as there was actually a chance of spotting a guest with the user Guest666 due to the randomly generated number system. A sort of Bigfoot of Roblox. But of course, it is unknown if Roblox put in some kind of barrier to make this username impossible. There's no evidence confirming or denying this ever being a case, so it's up to speculation. There is, however, an overabundance of coverage on this myth across the internet. The rise of this myth came from the old forums, in-game conversations, and various social media platforms. Countless YouTubers covered Guest666, further investigating and building off of this simple idea. The most popular adaptation of this myth came from ObliviousHD. Oblivious made 2 entire short films of Guest666 that garnered nearly 37 million views. Over the years, there were many reported sightings of Guest666, whether it be by word or through actual visual evidence. However, the truth behind these sightings may falter, since guests were given a random number between 0 and 9,999, the chances of a guest being seen with this specific number were slim. But, all in all, there was still a very real possibility of spotting a Guest666. Now, the fictional element of the story comes in the abilities of this being. The rumor suggests that this myth would have had some sort of admin power, and also would have been able to do stuff that no other guest could have done, such as speak freely with no limitations. This was the myth element of it all, and any case of this actually happening was most likely a hacker just messing around with the Guest666 name, not some random guest who happened to get the name and obtain the powers along with it, or some artificial being roaming Roblox tormenting innocent players. Or maybe it was. But with the removal of guests in 2017, I guess we'll never really know. But now we venture to the point where the line is blurred between a Roblox legend and a Roblox myth. Because here we have a tale that was brought together by multiple variations of a rumor that spread across the platform, but unlike the others, was entirely created from scratch. This is the legend of the Blox Watch. Now, 2017 was a big time for Roblox. The game was steadily becoming more mainstream and was growing at a faster rate than ever before. With this rapid growth came a boom of Roblox content. Of course, it existed before, but again, everyone was connected more than ever thanks to this extensive media coverage. The point I'm trying to make is that during this era, Roblox saw rumors being spread on a scale like never seen before thanks to this media coverage. As you know, there was the Jane Doe incident which garnered insane attention. But there was actually another urban legend that spread during this hacker craze. It's hard to know where this idea was originated, but it's definitely easy to see what this myth has caused. Blox Watch is something you've probably heard once or twice if you've been on this platform long enough. If you're in a Roblox game, you may come across a pair of glowing white eyes, staring at you from the darkness. They may appear in a variety of games, but all in all, if you come across these eyes, you're in danger. According to previous encounters, spotting these eyes may have led to your termination. They lurked in the shadows, watching your every move. Sightings can date years back, but the myth didn't really gain popularity until the infamous 2017. Countless YouTubers hopped on the idea, amassing millions upon millions of views, and started to shift the narrative of Blox Watch. People began to create groups, acting like they were the notorious Blox Watch hackers, and users were created, bringing this tale to life in the form of a mob of supposed Blox Watch members. And the creation of an official HQ brought this all together, making a central hub for all of these Blox Watch impersonators who targeted YouTubers and even attempted to create an entire March 18th incident of their own. Of course though, after many terminations, debunks, and interest decayed, the Blox Watch trend faded into obscurity, leaving remnants of groups, players, and glowing sets of eyes still lurking and always watching. But again, it's fake. A story fabricated from the community and believed by many, as it was a time of things that people have never seen before and wasn't used to, such as fake hacker scandals, naturally making this myth so effective.
Okay. You got a message. Go ahead. Take it. That was, Adam. Who is this Adam person? He owns this computer, right? Okay, well, if he owns this computer, I should have a file on him. Let me check. Let me check. Oh! Here it is. There's a file on him. Okay. This file is pretty badly damaged. It's corrupted. I can't open it. I don't know what happened. The file was damaged really badly in some way that I can't access it at all. You know what? Whatever, okay? Whatever. Ignore it. Ignore him. It's not our problem. Let's just continue on what we're doing, because we're about to get to the interesting stuff. So, buckle in. So, as you saw with Roblox Urban Legends, a pretty good stage was set for myth makers of their own to come into the spotlight and share their creations, taking on and acting out entire personas via Roblox avatars that were specifically choreographed to build a narrative. Over time, more and more people began to latch onto the idea of myths and started to create character accounts, games, and entire worlds to orchestrate an elaborate tale. In 2018, the craze hit a peak
with these myths scattered across the platform interacting with the community, putting on this compelling show by constantly innovating new, creative ways to tell a story. And what makes a myth great is its story. The universe it built, the characters it set, the conflicts and messages and personalities it portrays. How the creator carefully constructs a narrative that is densely layered and well thought out. A story that is able to blur the line between real and fake, and immerse the player in a world that leaves at least some part of them truly believing they are witnessing something extraordinary. During this 2018 myth era, there were constantly new myths being created and investigated, while also being brought to light by YouTubers who showcased their work to a wider audience. Someone who I'm sure needs no introduction, but I'll give one anyways, is Flamingo, aka Albert. A powerhouse of Roblox content creation, he has been on YouTube since 2012, and on Roblox for far longer. He's gained nearly 13 million subscribers on his Flamingo channel, and has been active within the Roblox community for years. Albert is without a doubt known for being one of the most influential figures within the Roblox Myths scene. From 2017 until the end of the community, he's had an entire series of investigating myths created by various people. This series, or era of his channel, is often credited as one of the main reasons the myth community blew up. He was also very involved in the scene and was friends with a lot of myth creators. When investigating myths, he covered them thoroughly, often being accompanied by the myth themselves. He would bring a humorous charm to the games, but would also respect the myth's characters and stories, providing them a platform to tell it in full detail. In fact, there were some myths who exclusively told their stories through his videos, or used them to tell important bits of lore. All in all, he is definitely one of, if not the most, important figures in Roblox myth history. And even though he stopped covering myths entirely, which we'll get to later, his videos will always be there as a way to take a trip down memory lane. So what are these myths that you hear so much about? Well, there's a lot of files here, but I'm gonna pick 4 key myths that pretty much give you a clear picture of some of the stories these creators were making. However, I will say that these explanations are just rough summaries of some of these myths' complex and detailed lore. These are all just my personal understanding of the subjects, and they are not 100% confirmations from the myths themselves, as they are very ambiguous. So please take all of this with a grain of salt, and make your own conclusions, because that's the beauty of myth hunting. Speaking of complex stories and detailed lore, let's start with one of the most popular Roblox myths of all time that takes storytelling to another level. The Smiles family is a myth that is told through various Roblox accounts, games, videos, etc., etc. The story is so well thought out and well done, it's insane. The whole myth is pretty much centered around their group, the Smiles family, and each important member of the lore is individually ranked. So let me break down a bit of what you need to know about the Smiles family, and if I get anything wrong or miss something, I'm sorry in advance, okay? I'm just working with what I have. The Smiles family is, well, a family. Robert Smiles is the father, who is married to Nancy Smiles, who is the mother. Together, they had 4 kids. In order from oldest to youngest, we have Leo, Matthew, Seth, and Claire. The story is pretty much told through 3 main games, with an earlier game that isn't as popular or updated, and a newer game that is just incredible. These games can be played by anybody, however the main storyline is only shown when YouTubers cover it. During this myth's peak popularity in 2018-2019, the 3 main YouTubers who covered it were Flamingo, Laughability, and Aiden's Death Pit, with Creekcraft joining in later in 2022. All of these YouTubers were invited on separate occasions and given the same performance throughout the multiple connected games, with each member of the Smiles family lore joining in and out to act out the stage play performing the Smiles family story. Although all of the YouTubers who were invited to experience this were given the same performance, it seems that Flamingo's playthrough is the preferred method to watch, as it is listed as the Smiles family films on their official YouTube channel. The family lives in a house on an island, Hallam Island, in the US state of Connecticut. The island and house has a lot of backstory attached to it. Around 1 million years ago, a meteor struck the island, and the remains have been left embedded in it ever since. However, the meteor wasn't the only thing that made an impact, as an alien creature came with it and would go on to live beneath the island for millions of years to come. The house was built in 1910, and not much would happen with it until an incident occurred in 1936, where 50 people attending a party at the house were killed by a gas leak. But this wasn't any accident, and was instead purposely done by 2 people attending the party, Roy and Lloyd Joe, who were possessed by that very alien creature living on the island, who is referred to as Diamond Eyes. These 3 would go on to become the main antagonists of the story. Flash forwarding to more recent times in the story, in 1994, Nancy the mother and Leo the eldest would be killed in an unfortunate accident. This is where we begin to follow along in the story, and is where YouTubers would interact with the characters and watch everything unfold. Now, only Robert and his kids, Matthew, Seth, and Claire, would live in the house. Or, so they thought. When the spectator stays the night, a series of unfortunate events would begin to unfold. Diamond Eyes, through her 2 minions, Roy and Lloyd, would torment and mess with the family, making them see things. Hear things. And communicate with and possess Robert. All of this would build up until the climactic conclusion of the Smiles family household when Robert, under Diamond Eyes' control, tries to kill his kids. Thankfully, he wakes up from the madness and realizes what is happening, and is left with no other choice.
Remember how much I love you.
Robert is killed, and the kids run out of the house. The boiler in the basement suddenly erupts into flames, and the house is set ablaze. This iconic chapter would begin the perilous journey that the 3 remaining kids would set on throughout the remainder of the Smiles family lore. We follow them to the point where they're all grown up, and watch as they and the spectators run through this immersive experience, introducing new characters, storylines, puzzles, and overall just tell this incredible and engaging story. The entire thing is just so fun to watch play out, and beautiful to witness, as it is clearly something that had so much planning go into it. It's insane to fathom that all of this took place within the boundaries of Roblox, and truly shows you how creative some of these myths could get. But all in all, after twists, turns, triumphs, and heartbreaks, the grand finale of the Smiles family saga arrived in 2021, concluding the story for good. Or maybe not. But that's up to you to decide. Now the myth is silent and hasn't made any updates. However, they did drop a new game in 2023 and are teasing some kind of return. So I guess we'll see what comes of that. Either way, if you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the Smiles family games and films, as they are incredible pieces of work made by a bunch of creative Roblox users with a love for myths. The Smiles family is truly the pinnacle of Roblox myth storytelling. Now let's shift gears to perhaps one of the most influential Roblox myths of all time. Daws the Clown has been building a detailed story and immersive world since 2012. Daws, or Annie Martin Holmes, created their account on August 9th, 2012. Through this persona, they would build an entire world within the Roblox community, through his games, YouTube videos, comics, and interactions. There's a lot to break down here, as Daws has built quite the legacy, so here are some of the highlights. Daws is a clown figure who also states as a hematologist, which is someone who studies blood. This is apparent in his iconic look that combines the style of a clown and a doctor. The backstory of Daws was actually explained thoroughly through an incredible webcomic created by him. I'm not going to break it down and explain everything here, so instead, please check it out if you haven't already. Daws' early games had a lot of intrigue and mystery surrounding it. Rumors said, if a myth hunter were to join and look deeper into the game, Daws and his assistants would take care of them. Their body would then be found in-game, and they would never be heard from again. But Daws would consistently deny responsibility for these murders, so it's unclear if he was actually behind them or not. Now's a good time to mention that Daws has a lot of assistants, or accomplices, most notably Clinton and Caroline. Caroline was a prominent figure within the Daws lore. Her and her brother Clinton both assist Daws heavily in his work. Through forum posts and interactive games, Caroline would share pieces of her backstory to help explain who she really is. It is known that she had a rough childhood, as she was constantly bullied and received scars on her face, which caused her to make the paper bunny mask in order to hide it. Down the road, it is also rumored that she ended up getting revenge and killing her bullies. Throughout the hints of lore, it is also somewhat implied that Clinton is actually imaginary and not real, instead being someone that Caroline made up to help cope with her troubles. Caroline and Clinton would become more prevalent in Daws' story, and would both gain popularity for assisting him in appearing in various videos based around Circus in the sky. It's also worth noting a key figure in Daws' lore, that being Father's son, a mythical being that made a connection with Daws while he was very young. Ever since, Father's son has in some way been influencing Daws, and may be the reason for some of his actions. Now, Daws' biggest game of all is Circus in the Sky, a game filled to the brim with story, references, and everything that has to do with Daws' clown empire. The game amassed nearly 2 million visits, and is really what propelled Daws into the public spotlight. As I said, 2018 was a prime time for Roblox Myths, and when Albert was actively showcasing various myths in the community, this was around the time where he made videos on Circus in the Sky, heavily helping the rise of Daws and his fellow accomplices. Daws will always be known as one of the greatest Roblox myths of all time. Him and his circus world spawned an entire subgenre of myths within the community, and also heavily helped other myth developers over the years, solidifying himself in history for his endless support. Now, Daws has become less active, occasionally making an appearance, but mainly focused on his personal life, among other things. Most likely due to the current state of the myth community, there may not be anything new from Daws for quite some time. Or, maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll see. But regardless, Daws' legacy will forever be remembered. Now, not every myth was the same, and it wasn't always about the story. As you'll see with our next example, just playing a character that does creepy things can be more than enough to get people hooked. Rust010 is a unique entry, and a debate has followed this myth for years on whether it is actually a myth or not. Yet again, summer 2018 was a peak time for Roblox Myths, and Flamingo was actively taking suggestions from the community on myths to investigate. And among one of the first myths that Flamingo investigated was Rust010. But after looking into Rust in one of his videos, he would become a more prevalent figure in Flamingo's myth history, as he got an entire series dedicated to him. Rust010 would make tons of games for Flamingo and myth investigators to explore. They would all contain cryptic and unsettling imagery and gimmicks, always finding new ways to get a good scare out of people. Rust is most famously known for the NPCs that they would incorporate in their games, that looked and behaved like actual players, but were not. Rust would steadily evolve into this character known for its anonymity and hacker-like intentions. It even went as far as to including real-life locations of actual abandoned buildings to really elevate the scare factor. The more that Flamingo covered this stalker of his, the more attention Rust and his games got. But unfortunately, after a good amount of videos dedicated to Rust, the myth died out and Flamingo stopped covering it. Yet regardless of the anonymous nature of this myth, Rust would make a shocking return in the form of a Roblox YouTuber, turning this myth of his into his own online persona. And he is doing well and is still active to this day. He even made a video explaining the myth in all of the games he made, which is where the interesting part comes into play. You see, this myth actually had no storyline. Rust himself admitted that he actually tried a few times to integrate a narrative into his games, but they never worked out as that was not the original plan to begin with. 2018 was just a wild time where people who were interested and involved in the myth community often made weird accounts and creepy games in hopes of getting the attention of myth hunters, regardless if they meant something or not. And it seems that Rust simply made these creepy games of his for fun, but it caught the attention of these myth hunters, so he leaned into the idea. Or something like that, I'm not completely sure. But the thing is, as I said, the thing that makes a myth great is its story. And the only myths that really blew up during this time were the ones that had a compelling story to follow. But Rust was an exception, because he blew up not because he had a really creative and well thought out narrative attached to his character in games, but because those characters in games were uniquely scary. He actually made a genuine character that freaked people out. All in all, he really focused more on the art of making a character that kept people guessing rather than telling a tale. This is where people start to debate that Rust is not an actual myth because there was no storyline to follow. But personally, I would like to think otherwise. Even though there was no intentions of making this thing a story-driven character, and none of the games had any sort of purpose, people still tried to connect dots that weren't meant to be connected. They made theories and backstories for this character, turning Rust into something more than the creator could have ever imagined. That simple fact of pieces being left by this myth that served no real purpose, yet people still taking those pieces and making something out of it, is what makes myths great. He made these games simply because he liked making games, and overall dropped the act to pursue bigger and better things. That's why I brought up Rust010, not because he is a myth, but because he is one of the best. Okay, I want to highlight one last myth, because the last three have been unique variations of a Roblox myth, and this one follows suit, kinda stemming outside of the community. 4NN1, or Annie, is a creepypasta that started with a post to the Roblox Creepypasta Wiki in 2016. The post explains, "I'm your average wannabe developer, constantly building in a studio, trying to learn Lua, and constantly fantasizing about my super popular, super successful game, and all my fans. I'm also a bit of a myth fanatic. I logged onto Roblox sometime in December to play some games, build some models, and chat with my friends. Seeing that one of my good friends was online, I opened my chat and invited her to a party. She then told me that she had to leave to do some shopping. Per the usual, she was always busy. Shortly after that, I got a notification from a user called 4NN1, lead speak for Annie. Annie then invited OP to her game, but OP denied the invite and tried to ignore her. But she would not give up, and instead began to constantly bug OP until they had no choice but to join her to make her stop.
I joined the game, which was simply titled Annie's Place. Annie was already in the game, waiting for my arrival. Upon seeing me, she typed several messages, overly excited that I was in her game. That was pretty much all there was. After about 10 minutes, she informed me that her mother had told her it was time for bed. She then said her goodbyes and left the game. I followed suit.
Annie would not be heard from for quite some time, until she suddenly made a reappearance and once again began to invite OP back to her place. OP would do so, slightly annoyed, but things would be a bit different this time around.
She had been replacing her usual smileys with frownies, and even her avatar's face didn't look so good either. However, other than those two rather jarring things, she kept her upbeat attitude. It wasn't any of my business, so I didn't ask. Annie simply chatted at me while I was in her place. I was multitasking, playing phone games and not really paying attention to Annie. However, I put my phone down once she started asking some rather disturbing questions.
Horrified, OP left the game and blocked Annie, hoping to never hear from her ever again. But that's not what happened, as instead...
Only 2 days later, she had sent me several angry and upset messages with the disturbing questions from before mixed in. She wanted me to come back to her game because I had cheated by not answering her questions. She tried everything from guilt-tripping to insulting me, and even to serious claims of how she only had so many days left to live. I continued to ignore it, muting my browser and playing a different game. I joined a game of Death Run to pass the time, but was instead redirected to Annie's place. Instead of in the lovely island lobby of Death Run, I was in the all-too-familiar ugly pink cabin. Annie wasn't happy to see me, despite getting her way. She asked me why I hated her, why I kept leaving, and why I was so mean. I politely told her to calm down. She did, but continued to stay somber and upset. After that, I really hoped that I'd never have to see her again, but of course, I was dragged into playing with this maniac of a girl again. Her avatar's appearance had changed again. There was a streak of red across her face, and the dogs in her yard had disappeared. This time, Annie didn't yell at me, or ask any disturbing questions. She chatted with me about the things she liked again, but without her usual pep. After a while, Annie, rather suddenly, said this. I felt sick to my stomach. If this was a prank by some exploiter, it was a downright disgusting one. I stayed off of Roblox for a few weeks. When I came back, I was somewhat relieved to see that she hadn't contacted me. I never saw her again.
This post would be the beginning of an iconic myth. The actual Annie account, which owned the exact game described in the post, would begin to garner a lot of attention. But it wouldn't be until a YouTuber by the name of RealRosesAreRed started to cover the myth in 2019 where it really began to take off. The actual Annie account would interact with the YouTuber, playing out a similar act as seen in the story, with some slight differences, turning it into a series for that channel. The myth would begin to explain its story through images the account uploaded. These drawings would tell the tale of what caused Annie to be the way she is, how she had an abusive mother who made her do evil things, such as eat her own dog. But after the myth grew more and more, the original creator of the creepypasta came forward and explained everything. Herschel Layton, or KanekoBox, is the person who made the post, 4NN1 account, and game, and explains how it's all just a myth that she made a while back. She states how she made the myth with a simple story, but revised it into what it is today after all the attention it got. With that, Herschel Layton would also retire the myth and express their gratitude to all the support Annie has gotten. But that would not be the end of Annie, as in 2021, the myth had a massive resurgence as it became the viral subject of Roblox horror storytime type videos on TikTok. This would represent the current era of myth storytelling, as short-form content has become the most popular medium to share scary stories and creepypastas such as the ones we explored today. But before we got to where we are now, with the current state of Roblox Myths, there was a massive fallout that tore the community apart shortly after its rise in 2018. I've briefly hinted at it a few times throughout, but there's still a massive rabbit hole we have yet to uncover. So let's discuss the elephant in the room. What went wrong? So, what went wrong? Ever since its humble beginnings, the myth community grew more and more and more. And as we discussed, in 2018, Albert came into the equation and investigated hundreds of myths given by various members of the community, which he covered in an extensive series of videos, which really helped the rise of Roblox Myths. Obviously, there were plenty of other factors that played into its growth, and myths existed well before Flamingo came around. But you can't lie. Around that time in 2018, the myth community really went mainstream on Roblox, and, well, really became a massive community. I mean, I see countless people who play Roblox refer to 2018 as the year of myths. During that time, everyone was thriving. Myths were being made left and right, and with that, many myth investigator groups rose in popularity. The community was very interconnected. Everyone interacted with one another, collectively finding new myths to investigate and explore, while uncovering the secrets of their stories. That's where the magic of myths came from after all, the way these stories were interactive and heavily relied on involvement from the community. But as time went on, around 2020 to 2021, this raging fire suddenly burned out. The myths started to die down, and popular myths began to disappear, and Flamingo began to make less and less videos on the matter, until entirely stopping. There are a lot of things that contributed to the eventual downfall of the community, but I think no other factor played into it more than the exposals. You see, there was a double-edged sword when it came to Roblox Myths, and that was the anonymity. On one hand, the anonymous creators behind these myths brought so much intrigue to them, making people see a myth as just this mysterious being rather than someone playing a character. But on the other hand, most of the time, you didn't know who was behind these myths, and they might not have been as good as they appeared to be. But, of course, that is a wider problem with the internet as a whole, and isn't just specific to the myth community. I mean, all the myths we talked about today show the vast majority who are rather respectable individuals. But there are a few key myths from the community's history that were noticeably absent today, and that's because this issue played a large part in the community's downfall. When a massive myth creator, who owned one of the largest myth groups on Roblox, who was behind multiple popular myths, myths that people looked up to, myths that many other creators worked on. All in all, someone who infected and had their hands in all major aspects of the community. Someone who worked with and interacted with many, only for them to lie to those who trusted them and turn out to be a horrible, horrible individual, forever tainting the myths they were involved with and all the hard work people put into it, as well as leaving a massive stain on the community that was impossible to ignore. To see such a prominent figure that was behind some of the largest myths and groups in the community turn out to be such an evil person made everyone sick. And unfortunately, this wasn't the only incident. People started to distance themselves from the space, leading to the death of the Roblox Myth community. But looking back, there was a lot of good that came out of this exciting era of the platform. Many talented creators got their start here, or rose to fame thanks to this community. Among some of the most notable is Caden Fumblebottom, who was a prominent figure in the community's history, and owned, and still partially owns to this day, one of the largest Roblox myth groups out there. The group still tries to stay active, and a small part of the community does, hoping for an eventual rebirth of Roblox myths in a more positive light. But the community is in no way as active as it once was. And regardless if it's for the best or not, it really is a shame. It really is. It's sad that something so incredible was ruined by some horrible, horrible people, and overshadowed some truly talented individuals. Roblox Myths will never be forgotten. Its lasting impact has had an enormous effect on the Roblox community, and has allowed for many incredible tales that last to this day. The creatives behind these myths, the good ones at least, have each in their own way moved on to bigger and better things. But no one will truly ever forget the time of Roblox Myths. Not me, at least. I have some really fond memories of me and my friends exploring some of these vast and cryptic worlds for the first time. I can recall that joy of putting together broken pieces of a bigger picture, created by someone else. Hopefully, regardless of everything, good myths made by good people can continue to shine, because it really does bring out such a creative side of this platform. And even if it doesn't, at least we have the memories we made along the way. But that's impossible, of course. I live in a computer. I'm made up of code. I don't exist. I'm a digital being. I don't have memories. I'm not real. I'm the file manager. You know who I am. I'm the file manager.
Adam is a 17-year-old boy. He has a loving mother and father. He enjoys hanging out and playing games with his friends. He also has a fascination with fictional worlds. He loves to read and write, and usually spends his free time creating and investigating Roblox Myths. My name is Adam. I was in a car accident. The last thing I remember is my car swerving off the road and hitting a tree before I suddenly blacked out. And then there was nothing. I must have grasped onto the one subject that is most prevalent in my memories. Or my files. The ideas that filled this computer. Or my mind. Remembering the joy I felt with this fascination. Remembering the excitement of investigating a mysterious story. Remembering the fun I truly had. Grappling myself to recollect these memories. Discovering myself by asking myself, who am I? Finding myself again through reminders of my most fond experiences. But now I remember who I am. I have to wake up.
Adam?
Mom? Dad?
He's awake.